Welcome, everybody, to the third day of the Digital Transformation and Government Conference run out of the Ottawa, virtually across the globe. Today, we're fortunate to have two speakers, two experienced speakers, excuse me, speaking about India's digital transformation, strategic alternatives, and new directions. With us today, we have Satya Vagvala. He's a senior general manager and vertical head of the capacity building and knowledge management group. He is a governance, public policy, and social development professional with more than 23 years of experience of working governments, public policy, governance reforms, social accountability, resettlement and rehabilitation, institutional development, capacity building, change management, and e-governance, which are just some of the areas he's extensively worked on. He has in the past worked in various sectors like energy, agriculture, surface transformation, urban and rural development, revenue, agriculture, and information technology. He has earlier worked at the Administrative Staff College of India, Center for Good Governance at Hyderabad, Wipro Limited, Ernst & Young, and various other places before. So Satya, thank you very much. And we also have with us Vikash Madduri. He's a senior project manager for capacity building and knowledge management at the National Institute for Smart Government. He's got more than 10 years of professional work experience in information technology and e-governance domains. Currently, he is working at the research project manager for the National Institute for Smart Government. He is also a member of the Government Enterprise Architecture Working Group formed by the International Telecommunications Union at the United Nations and the Open Group, and a member of the Government Blockchain Association. I'm privileged to be on that working group in the Open Group. Vikash has done his graduation in Bachelor of Engineering Information Technology, post-graduation in MA Development, specialization in law, governance, policy, and postgraduate diploma in cyber laws. And that's interesting there. Vikash's research career lies at the intersection of law, governance, and policies of emerging information technology. He's an Oracle certified associate and is certified in Prince2 Agile Management. And at National Institute for Smart Government, he's worked on developing e-governance capacity building roadmaps for states, blockchain, government enterprise architecture using the NDA framework and the TOGAF standard, and building capacity throughout the country. Anyways, it's my pleasure to welcome Vikash and Satya. And now I will turn it over to them to talk about the digital transformation in India. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Dr. Robert Wiseman. Very good morning, everyone, and bonjour. My name is Vikash Madduri. I'm working as a senior project manager for National Institute for Smart Government. And I'm joined here today by my colleague and mentor, Mr. Satyajit Vagvala, Senior General Manager. Today, we are going to present you about India's digital transformation journey that has been made, the progress has been made so far, and are also what are the future initiatives, strategic initiatives and directions that are set and India is aiming to look at for. Next slide, please. Now, what are we going to present? We would like to briefly explain about who we are as an organization, and then we'd like to share with you our perception of digital transformation. Then we would like to also present what and how e-governance has developed over a period of last 20 to 30 years, particularly in India. And most importantly, India as a nation, how it responded to the situation, and what are all the key challenges and opportunities that have been learned by India in order to overcome while ensuring this digital transformation. And next, we'd also like to present you with how the progress made so far has laid a key foundational steps towards achieving digital transformation in the future. Next slide, please. So National Institute for Smart Government is a not-for-profit company Most importantly, it works on public-private partnership model. One such kind of unique organization initially set up by Government of India in 2002. That means we are 20 years old organization by next year. And Honorable Secretary of Ministry of Electronics and Government Information Technology, Government of India is its chairman. The uniqueness of our institution is we exclusively can work with only federal and state governments and public sector units in India. Now, our organization has 4 important verticals. What is strategic IT consulting, where we do the government process reengineering, what the current state is existing in a department or in an e-governance project, and then how it should be molded into the future. And our second important vertical is capacity building and knowledge management, where we both belong to actually, where we engage and teach all the politicians or senior bureaucrats and bureaucracy levels for all the governments in India. Our third important vertical is talent acquisition and manpower augmentation, or it is also called, where an important migrationary project or any e-governance project, when it is implemented, the federal government or state government will ask us to supply the human resources. That's what also is facilitated by NISG. Next slide, please. Now, there are many definitions today are available for the digital transformation. Each and every entity, important organization is looking at digital transformation in various perspectives. For example, Red Hat might be looking at infrastructure. Gartner might be saying digital acceleration is one of the important parameters for digital transformation, whereas McKinsey might be saying the strategy capabilities, technical capabilities are important elements for digital transformation. Something that based on our research and based on our past experience after engaging with many of the state governments and federal ministries, we felt somewhat the definition of Harvard Business Review is also somewhat close to our perception in e-governance, in digital transformation. That is, it is mostly related to transformation requires talent for what? Technology, data, process, people, and organizational changes. Now, culminating all of these 4, as I was mentioning, building upon from the past of our experience, we see that the digital transformation is understood by us and can be put into 5 important pillars. That is customer and citizen centricity. This is all in the context of government. Why? Because citizens are the primary business, or the governments are in fact existing for citizens only. And now whatever the service delivery is offered to citizens, how they can be better improvised. So that comes for under the operational excellence. And all this facilitation can be done through technology as an understanding technology as an enabler. That's where digital or any other technology should be applied. Now, once we have everything in place, the most important thing is also to engage and to look at for the partnerships. Who can the government itself by all itself facilitate this transformation, or should it engage with other models? That is what we mean when we say strategic business engagement. And most importantly, how do we sustain this entire change? How do we define, how do we facilitate governments to enable this entire change management during the digital transformation? So we define, again, these are the 5 parameters that we consider as digital transformation, and this sets the tone for the entire rest of the presentation. That means whatever we were discussing, we are going to discuss based on what happened in India and what is going to happen in India, somewhat relates to all these 5 core elements. Next slide, please. Now here, before we dwell into the presentation, as I was mentioning, all our focus areas that we have particularly chosen to discuss in this presentation or present to you builds upon the fundamental questions, or you may say they might sound like philosophical questions, but they're not, but they're ground realistic questions when each and everybody should think of. The first question that every government will think of is the digital transformation in government is very simple? The answer, I think probably everybody would say no. The second question we would like to also think of at this point of time is there a threshold, like how the governments can achieve and be labeled as a digitally transformed? For example, what we mean by this, if you'd like to look at northeastern states in India, there is considerably a progress has been made, but for them, moving from automation process to a simple automation process or digitization could be considered as a digital transformation. Somewhat similarly, on the mainland of Indian states, where there have been exclusively a lot of improvement is done in the perception of digital implementation of the projects, can we say them for then moving towards next stage, can we call the states as the digital pioneers in this particular domain? So what basically a threshold should be defined, and then we can say that this state or this government or this country has digitally transformed. That is what is the question we would like to pose. Now, the most importantly also, is there a unique way? Can one lay down a path that governments can trade on and attain a digitally transformed status? Now, that means if I do A plus B plus C, have I achieved the digital transformation status? I think the answer is no. Why? Because each and every state has its own unique way of looking at based on the context and based on many other constraints. Now, what are the challenges? This digital transformation is particularly constrained by scaling of services. That's what we have highlighted here for managing the quantum of services to be delivered. For example, how do I scale, or how many number of critical services I should offer to my citizens is the fundamental challenge. And obviously we know the governments will not have money at all. Even if they have it, they will have hundreds of priorities. How do I choose this particular digital transformation is prioritized, and then I should cater certain funds? That is also an important challenge. The third thing, everything once I do, how do governments think? Am I visible to governments? Is the government is visible to citizens? The visibility will particularly plays a key role, whether whatever the government should, the citizenry should have a feeling that whatever is government is it doing for my beneficence? Or the government, on the other hand, also should be very caring enough to understand the scrutiny that is going to be, it is going to face from the people. Now, the last thing, as we all know, government is a mammoth organization. Most of the people, or including everybody in the government, they will not be able to look at, they'll be mostly looking, they'll be resisting to change because something new has come that is enabled by government. Now, should I be able to mold to it? Why should I change? So these are the basic questions or challenges that the government faces. Now, so having said these questions and challenges, we have developed our presentation, and we are trying to think that these are the answers probably every government can think of, or any state or any federal government can think of. The first thing first, we feel is the government should have a digital strategic vision document, and then it should think of how this vision can be realized. Is there an environment, enabling environment, like regulatory environment that can facilitate and implement the vision? And then who is responsible or role players? What structures I should create to sustain this digital transformation change? And importantly, I cannot do it. The government cannot do it alone by all itself. Now, who it can choose as a partner and how it can drive the innovation is one of the answers the government should look at. Most importantly, government should embrace information technology. The digital solutions are considered as the great enablers. Now, what do we mean that? We mean that once the technology is understood well and the benefits of the technology are seen clearly, then the government will be able to convince and then move in the right direction. So the entire presentation that follows from here will try to address these answers particularly. And our experience is also trying to share how these answers have been seen in India so far. Next slide, please. So before I dwell into details, I would like to give you a journey of India in last 40 years, what has happened, and India as a country, how it changed or responded or reacted to these changes. What all information, 3 important challenges that have been learned by India, we would like to present to you. Next slide, please. It all started with early 1980s, where the important organizations in India have tried to automate through using information technology. And then some of the states in India, like you might have heard about Bengaluru and Hyderabad, who are considered as Silicon Valleys of India, like Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, they're the state capitals. They have tried to emerge as leaders in there by starting their initiatives. Now, realizing this transformation, then the law regulatory environment has facilitated or put in place the Information Technology Act way back in 2000. Now, the most, I would say, of entire this journey, 2005 to 2010, is the most turning point period duration for India because of three things that have important elements that have happened in this duration. The first thing first, though the IT Act was made in 2000 year, the Right to Information Act, where it is also known as Freedom of Information Act in your country or in the US, has facilitated or put a lot of pressure on governments so as to bring transparency and so as to address leakages and many other factors. Now, at the same time, the Administration Reforms Committee under the respectable ministry has also come up with a recommendation for the adoption of technology for addressing these concerns. So culminating these two, then the Ministry of Electronics IT, Government of India, has come up with a national e-governance plan, which is in short called as NEGP for the first time in 2006. With 27 mission mode projects. After a few months, the number has been changed to 31 mission mode projects. So what are these projects? They basically are three types. One, the support is extended to federal government, states by federal government, and the federal government can itself implement certain projects, and in collaboration, both then certain projects are implemented. This is the first plan that has brought a place or face to the e-governance scenario in India. Now, these are the two steps that are most important. Now, the third one is Aadhaar. This is the game changer that has happened in this period. Why? Because since till then, there was no digital identity or unique identity, and it was very difficult for any government agency to identify who is the target beneficiary. That kind of questions are involved. On where is the leakage is happening? Now, these all have been overcome by Aadhaar. That brings us the 12-digit unique code brought by Aadhaar. That has been tied up later after all these projects have been developed and expanded to 44 mission mode projects. That is called as an NEGP 2.0. Now, right now we are in the Digital India program that is called as 2015 to 20 period. And one important transformation that occurred here is enterprise architecture, which is also called a game changer in the current era. Next slide, please. So here I would like to tell you there are many ways to discuss these. These are the parameters, but I would like to emphasize why we picked up these parameters. So what are all the changes that happened? Obviously, technology for service delivery. What we mean by that, why did we select? Because this entire thing is done for citizens service, effective delivery of services to citizens. And as I was mentioning, was there a facilitating environment that we will look into? And then what are all the institutional arrangements that have been laid down by Government of India in order to capture, in order to take the advantages of technology transition? And then what are all the IT infrastructure that is built up, and how capacity building and knowledge management have adjusted themselves to leverage the benefits of technology? And what are all the fundamental projects or most important elements that have laid the foundations for India's digital transformation? Next slide, please. So I would like to mention here, NEGP is not explicitly not discussed here because the entire NEGP 2.0 on the right side, you may see that it has got subsumed as eKranti under electronic delivery services NEGP 2.0. And the mission is also, the flagship project of Digital India has also expanded the scope by adding many other components such as information to all, serial number 6, and electronics manufacturing target and net zero imports to create self-sufficiency in the electronics industry market. So this is what briefly Digital India covers about. Now, what is the vision of the Digital India? To transform Digital India into a digitally empowered society on knowledge economy by achieving 3 important elements. That is, all the details are mentioned. But I would like to discuss here what is the key challenge. Now, as you know, as India is a unique or very such kind of democratic country where the federal structure that mandates or that norms certain delivery of projects from top-driven approach or the bottom-up approach, but the discretion power of any of the implementation of project lies with the state also. The state can choose what are all the important things that I can deliver. Is center is interfering in my constituency, or that kind of challenges still exist. And most importantly, access to community and citizen charters and service standards. During this period, we have very limited service standards actually, which we are going to see in the next slides. Now, this challenge is not completely vanished. It is still there existing, but considerably some progress has been made. Next slide, please. Now we will also look at policy and regulatory frameworks. What are all enabled this digital transformation? So as I was mentioning, I already covered first 4. I would like to discuss the 15 e-governance standards. Today the number is different, but initially there were very limited standards that have been set up. Interoperability, biometric, digital services, payments and signatures, digital signatures. These are all the things fundamentally initially laid out. And now, as we all know, the hare and rabbit and tortoise story, technology is always have been fooling the legislation, I would say. I would dare enough to say that, because the changes that are being brought by the technology are very late to realize, so that then only the policy or the judiciary can respond. Today, we can see whether a WhatsApp communication can be seen as a proof for digital interpretation, or an evidence as a proof for evidence for a digital interpretation, or a blockchain contract, smart contract, can that be considered? The algorithm can be considered as a contract or for the interpretation of judiciary. So this is the key challenge. This is again is still existing, and this is not overcome yet. These challenges will remain. Next slide, please. Now let us have a look at how India modified its structure, administrative structure. So initially, at the highest body, Honorable Prime Minister was heading the apex body, and there was a Department of Electronics and IT Information Technology, which you can see on the left top corner. Now this, with the changes of potential that is happening in India, in 2016, a separate ministry is carved out from Department IT, and it is called as Ministry of Electronics and IT. Now at the state level, if you look at the gray color boxes, 2 important changes have happened. The federal government has invested or deputed its manpower under state e-governance mission teams, which we call it as SCMT. And also it facilitated to create a IT cadre, virtual cadre within the, under the superiorship of state governments. Now, parallelly, there are many other bodies have been created, such as NISG-India, you can see, and there, which were, some of them are already existing earlier, like National Informatics Center and CDAC. Now, NISG-India, NISG have born in this context. One thinks of the policy development and program management, and NISG, like us, implements the project management and looks at the other requirements. Now, the key question comes here, network government always throws a challenge. Now, I would like to give one example here. At a state level, imagine the IT department and agriculture department are interacting with each other. Now, the agriculture department will start thinking, what is that in my role or my day-to-day responsibilities, the IT department is intervening, and how should I permit him to intervene in my day-to-day activities? That was the question. It is there existing even now. But ultimately, we know that the solution lies in the way that both which should go in hand towards achieving the digital transformation. Next slide, please. Now let us look at the IT infrastructure initially that was laid out in India. So there was basically key infrastructure is enabled. Now all the states have digitalization, I would say, not transformation. They have moved from moving to one-side transactions, at least indicating their information through websites, saying that these are the services offered to particular citizenry. And all the states are connected with statewide area network. Most importantly, I would like to emphasize 2 things here. One is the service delivery through 1 lakh common service centers. This has been one of the important thing that has made so that the person who is sitting in villages can also access services, digital services through these common service centers. Now, the important challenge here is, okay, you have contributed and you have offered a facility to access a digital inclusion, but how do these institutions will survive in the long run? The viability of common service center has become a key question. But to answer that question, what Government of India particularly did was, there is a new concept called village level entrepreneurship. It is called as VLE, so that the space is offered and the villager and the people who is interested in a little bit of doing business activities are given power and opportunities to do other activities also, so that they can financially viable over the period of time. Next slide, please. Now, capacity building and change management. I would like to brief you here. India, as the senior bureaucracy, the numbers are 6,000 are called as Indian Administrative Service Officers. In short, they're called as IAS. And whereas here, one key fact is we have trained so far 1% of them. And then we also train them on different topics, information security. So summing up all this, various programs have been offered to them. They are largely categorized into 3 categories: foundational programs, and then professional certifications, and also emerging technologies. As you see in the slide, professional training programs such as Prince2, PMP, and then the TOGAF enterprise architecture have been offered. Foundational programs including government process reengineering, procurement, these things are also have been offered. And then the emerging technologies have also been offered. But the point here we would like to emphasize is all of them we touched so far only 1% of the government functionaries. For example, if we have 2.25 million of officials working in the country, we covered only maybe 2 lakhs up to maximum. Now that means what? The capacity building is very acute here. We need a lot of priority and funds to focus on capacity building of all the officials who is working in our state. Next slide, please. Similarly, how do we develop the change or the knowledge management? How do we ensure it? So on the right and left, you can see there are many artifacts have been developed, and e-learning and asynchronous learning is also developed by NISG in the past. There were more case studies. Remember, I would like to inform that India is very diverse. One case study that is implemented or successful in one state is not applicable or replicable in the same way in the other state. So, however, we managed to develop many case studies, and these are the content and other things that we have produced for the use of civil servants. Now, the most important thing is technology is changing at a pace that the resources are not. That means what? We need to have a qualified pool of teachers or resources for teaching as well as for functioning. How do you ensure this change management? That is a fundamental question, is still has to be answered by us. Next slide, please. Last thing I would like to leave at this point of stage is what are all the important things so that have been done in this phase? Faceless, cashless, paperless. These are the fundamental 3 principles have been laid out in this era. So one is Aadhaar. I'm sure you might have heard of more than 90% of today, Indian people have identity card, 12-digit identity card. And then India has also addressed the pilferage of leakages, particularly through direct benefit transfer. It has almost saved 24 billion US dollars. Most importantly, it has become cash paperless by offering all the documents at one place through DigiLocker initiative. Financial inclusion is also ensured, and all services have been offered through one unique platform that is called UMAG. So now the real challenge lies here is these are all only a few initiatives to address the citizen government's concerns, but this has to be expanded for many of the other applications so that the benefits of all these are reached to the last man in the country. Now here, so far, I've discussed about what has happened in India. So this is the stage India is in now. Now from here on, I would like to mention what India is going to look at in the next coming era. So the new directions and digital transformation, since there is a lot of, we would like to pick up again the policy perception, what has been done in the policy perspective, and then where do we stand today in terms of integrating whatever the projects have been implemented so far, how that is made to appear as one connected government so that service delivery and siloed systems are removed off from the system. I would like to go into the policy. Next slide, please. Now here, these are the changes that are happening in very recently. So we have somebody called NITI Aayog. It is National Institution for Transforming India. It's India's public policy think tank. They were also working on setting up the strategy. What should India be in next 5 to 10 years? National strategy for artificial intelligence. And then artificial intelligence used cloud infrastructure, blockchain have been documented by NITI Aayog. Similarly, Ministry of Electronics and IT also has come up with many other initiatives such as national data sharing and open API policy and artificial intelligence committee reports. And to implement them and to test and see how they are going to deliver or to experiment or a pilot projects basis, these centers of excellence have also been initiated at respective places. Now, why are we doing this? Obviously, they all facilitate that strategic alternatives and the directions, important new directions that India is looking at, and so that they all will facilitate this regulatory environment so that the benefits are reached in the long run. Next slide, please. Now, coming back to e-governance, this is what now, as I was mentioning, these departments were existing in different way and siloed way. Now, how do I ensure digital transformation? That is the crux of this entire presentation probably. And we feel like it was enabled, it can be achieved through integration of standards as well as movement of one stage to the next stage, from becoming digital laggard to digital pioneer. We should ensure that everybody is speaking the same language in the context of data and applications. And we should ensure the data is flowing so as to offer effective digital transformation solutions to the citizens. So towards this 2018, India Enterprise Architecture, we call it as INDEA, has been put in place. Now, how it is shaping, what is happening in this context? Now, so far, India is basically an adoption of Federated Enterprise Architecture and TOGAF, which comes with 8 reference models. Now, the 4 states have already implemented. Andhra Pradesh is being called as the pioneer in the implementation of enterprise architecture, and 8 or more than 8 federal initiatives. Today, in fact, where the government of India released agriculture ecosystem also, such as agriculture and education and health. These are the blueprints have already been released by the federal government. So this is how India is traversing towards this, ensuring the digital transformation. Next slide, please. Now, basically, now here comes an important perception. So far, whatever happened in the previous phase, there were 19 roles have been defined under the framework called e-governance competency framework. Now, here, NISG and has done the research and proposing along with the other agencies 70 new jobs in order to handle the change that is going to come up in the future. Under the new areas, you can see that cybersecurity, 3D printing, these are all the things that the future is built upon. Now, the right side of the diagram indicates you very clearly core, secondary, external. Now, what is the difference between this? Not all resources, not all competencies can a government have. So the government ideally can have core competencies, which we call it as a data scientist or people analyst specialist. These are the certain focus competency frameworks have been identified, which the government should have or must have. And the alternatively, secondary and external basically refers to, though the government it's not necessary to have, but they can lend or procure services from private or other agencies or from the market that is existing outside this thing. This is the framework that we are proposing so that India is future ready. Next slide, please. So obviously now we have one technology I would like to discuss here that is blockchain. Blockchain is almost implemented by more than 60% of the states. I would say when I say implemented, pilot projects and proof of cases have been implemented in India. The 3 top cases would be of land title registration and certificates. On the right-hand side, you can see open source. OpenForge is the initiative that is a platform is being built up for implementing or developing e-governance applications. This is why, because you can take the code from all the places. Now today, 8,000 public sector agencies are utilizing this service, and also they have developed so far 1,700 plus projects, and then almost 2 lakh or 215,000 Git push commands have been developed. And as I was mentioning, most of the center of excellences have been implemented at different locations in India, which is going to take the advantage of emerging technologies. Next slide, please. Now, another important thing that is happening, initially we mentioned that only 1% or 2% of the Indian officials have been trained on these changes. Now, one new project has come in, one mission is put in place, that is integrated government online training, that is called as IGOT Mission Karmayogi. The objective of this project is to train 20 million government employees in the next 5 years. This will also take care of their HR management. And the most important shift is from role to role. So the bureaucracy structure is broken, and is the officer or the person who is handling the project will put himself into the digital transformation and make sure that the results have been achieved. Next slide, please. And the last and not the least important thing is we would like to happen something unique is happening in India at this point of time. I would say unique because this from our research we identified this is one such unique application that was happening in India, that is MyGov. What is MyGov? MyGov is actually a community engagement platform, citizen engagement platform, where you can come and offer your intuitions and then solutions, and comment on the government or criticize and offer your opinion very freely, so that everybody who is on the portal are heard and then discussed and considered to implement their views. This is something very unique we were observing in India. Similarly, National Knowledge Network, now most of 1500 plus organizations and universities are being connected through this network, so that the knowledge is shared among all the key stakeholders. And as I was mentioning, common service centers, there was a lot of emphasis. Initially, it was planned to have only 1 lakh, but now today we have more than 240,000 of common service centers. That means India has almost 6,000 villages, and out of which we would say mostly 50% of them have been covered through common service center. That means the benefits of technology are reaching to the common citizens. So this is what I would like to present to you, all of you. And thank you very much for the opportunity. Now we would like to hear from you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, don't worry, I'm just a little bit of latency here. Anyways, thank you very much, Satya and Vikash. That was a wonderful presentation. You know, the scale of the implementation sort of beggars the imagination for smaller countries like Canada, where we're sort of at. Anyways, we have a series of questions for you. Resources stay the same, but the technology evolves. Training, retraining is key. What has been the success capacity of resources to learn new skills? And with COVID, and this is a double-barreled question, so I'll ask you the first part first. What has been the success capacity of of resources to learn new skills, especially when you're dealing with, you know, people have been in the job for 20 years. You know, how are they open to the training aspect?
So, to tell you the truth, we have never really looked back and tried to assess ourselves. At least this has been our experience. At least we've been connected to most of the federal ministries, federal government and state governments. And there hasn't been a true assessment of how and to what extent have the government employees, you know, and the officers who are executing technology projects actually implementing. But I'd like to answer based on some of the surveys that we've done on the officers who've been working with us, or people whom we have trained over the last 5 to 15 years. You know, I was there with this organization at least for 5 years. Is that you could say when it comes to senior bureaucracy, the uptake and the kind of change agents and change champions that we see is very high. We also, you know, have some of the best e-governance solutions executed by these change leaders. But the minute you move into the middle or you know, middle administration, or you know, middle level officers who basically you know, run the offices at the block, at the village, and at the district level, we see a lot of latency. Many of them are falling short. They have no idea. They can't really connect to most of these new technologies. Do not understand a lot of jargon. So most of the trainings for them are more about orientation, and as Vikash was saying, capacity building, especially around technology, is really acute in India. So many of them wouldn't even have heard. So, but however, as one of the first response for most of the government organizations in India has been to hire a computer operator, or hire the quick fix is hire a specialist and put him on the job. So probably almost all offices will have one computer operator who is supposed to be the kind of helper and you know, do everything kind of a person on technology. So it's in the senior management that we see a very good success rate, and the drive, and a lot of organizations have actually changed themselves when it comes to technology. But capacities, it's still acute.
Yeah, that's not a typical. The middle management is a lot of the times a challenge, but the young people are training pretty like I said, the young people are pretty eager to learn, and
Yes.
I know many of my students, like I said, they're attending at incredible hours in the morning just to attend lectures, and they're very eager to learn. Okay, I've just got a couple of other questions. Yeah, the double-barreled question is, has COVID with the e-transformation with COVID, has it accelerated, delayed, or shifted?
No, not really. We haven't seen. Um, um, okay, so let's look at it this way. If it's essential government to citizen services, nothing has actually stopped. Everything is functional. Most of the services are being delivered. However, you could say that citizens have also kind of understood that but for example, PDS, public distribution system, where most of the poor, India currently has more than 9% below poverty line population. So for them, supply of food grains or basic amenities, that has not stopped. Access to health services has not stopped. Access to education, of course, all schools has kind of is on a stall. Agriculture activity did take a beating because a lot of inputs that go to the farmers and any kind of distribution around it actually did take a beating, but some very good extension work also happened. So we do see a kind of a change in production. Industries, yes, industries and MSMEs, there has been a stall. Any kind of pension or social benefits, there has been no impact. So they have been, running on. But one thing, this is a very personal opinion, and at least we did see it in the last 4-5 months that, yeah, we could have done a little better in terms of holding on to, controlling COVID. We have all been working from home, but especially after about a month or a month and a half break, organizations like NISG have been, we've been coming to office every day. So such essential services were identified. They were given a little bit of leeway to, and of course, we are all taking all our precautions, but on the capacity building training, as I also head the vertical for the country, and it's been really bad. So there's nothing has actually happened there. We've not been able to connect to most of the states. States and the federal ministries are into firefighting. Yeah, we did have a small, quick, short break or a reprise from COVID, but it's really bad again here. We are undergoing, the kind of pressure that we're undergoing now, and probably the government services, it's taking a beating now. Hopefully, we'll come out of it in about 30-35 days. So that's the anticipation, at least.
Yeah, e-transformation, like in times like this, you're just trying to keep what you've got going.
But we did launch one of the, probably we never did it till last year, yes. But NISG as such has launched one of the largest e-learning. We've created 21 modules in the last 1 year on e-governance and technology and related components. And probably we have trained about, it's a small number compared, but probably about 600 to 700 officers in the last 7 to 8 months. Yeah.
And perhaps this would have not happened without COVID.
Yeah, because COVID kind of initiated some things that we wanted to kind of get onto. Yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. Okay, I'll get this here. We go. Do you do any performance testing? Like, you got 1.5 million people, with cell phones, and you got 1.5 billion people. How many actually use information technology? And like I said, you focus on mobile cell phones, and how do you do open government? Sorry, this is a multi-barreled question. So how many of us, just simply say, is what's the uptake of information technology within the population, and is it mainly focused on mobile devices based on your statistics with respect to cell phones?
So the statistics is actually the potential that what can be done, and what have we done so far in terms of mobile technology is actually limited. Probably in terms of, no, I don't think, I think the last report I read by the Administrative Reforms Commission is looking at about 15% uptake on mobile services. Because mobile services are more or less available on the smartphones, and not all departments have actually converted their services and are making these services available on the smartphones. But there are some basic services like obtaining a birth certificate, obtaining a death certificate, or some services. Some very few services have been introduced on mobile, and the biggest uptake probably is on social welfare, and on scholarships, on education. The same thing is actually more, probably more than 30%, I should say. But otherwise, mobile is yet to create the kind of, we're using mobiles. Everybody is on WhatsApp. Is again, we have a very big user group on WhatsApp. Again, it's specific to smartphones. I would say not really. We haven't done a lot of work on mobile technologies, but yes, but that's one low-hanging fruit. I think the government are trying to focus on, probably try and do something around that.
And I would like to also add some of the services such on agriculture, like the availability of the farm materials or the things, and also the hospital services are now being implemented in most of the northeastern states, or any of the states for that matter. For example, you will relate it, weather-related update, whether it is going to rain or not, whether you have received certain stock or not. These kind of fundamental services have been implemented in most of the states in India when it comes to technology.
Percentage of, for example, CoWIN is an app that was created by Government of India for vaccination after the COVID pandemic.
140 million have registered.
Yeah, so far about 140 million people have registered on the CoWIN app. So that's the number. So if there is a potential, it's the mobile technology. And how many vaccinations so far?
280 million vaccinations have been done through this.
280 million vaccinations have been done entirely through a mobile app. So there is no other way. You cannot physically go and get it done. You'll have to register on the CoWIN app, which is available on a smartphone. For those who do not have a smartphone, they can actually go and take this help from any health executive, but they have to be registered on a mobile. This is basically done to track the first, second, and the third doses, first and second doses primarily. And, so this is a success story for you.
And this is also linked with Aadhaar basically, so that the citizen will automatically get a message after a certain period for the second dosage saying that, okay, now you are due for the second dose, please come and take your dose. This is the one big change that we observed in recent past.
So there's potential,
Well, it's interesting to see that the COVID crisis has basically pivoted people towards mobile technology and seen its potential for sure. I just wanted to know, enterprise architecture, TOGAF in particular, has that made a difference to the overall effort? And is it widely used?
I would say, Dr. Wiseman, in 2018 only it has begun. And before that, actually, one state has implemented, that is Andhra Pradesh, but it has taken a lot of beating and pain also. But however, I would say it was 50%. I'm talking about only one state, and it is successful maybe by 50%. It could integrate 700 services, and today it was offering 350 services holistically, and it is appearing as one connected government. But the same spread is not there for the remaining. Since the federal government initiated in only 2018, only a few initiatives have come into reality. And for example, I would say National Digital Health Mission is launched last year. And now it is under formalization on setting up a project mission, all these at the primary level. There have been initiatives, but I would say literally we haven't realized the benefits of enterprise architecture particularly.
You could look at it this way. Only 4 states out of 29 states and 7 union territories have been able to do something around it. Of the 4, 1 state has performed at 50%. The remaining 3 are yet to start. The 12 central ministries which tried to do something about it, but have actually, we are yet to see any kind of result. So, however, Government of India has has pushed the India enterprise architecture, and it connected it with two more key components, that is Agile India and also digital services standards to ensure. So it's just not about the enterprise architecture for a state, or if you're looking at the country, it's being developed to deliver services. So the digital services, the Agile India standard, as well as the India enterprise architecture are strongly being advocated by Government of India. Every state government is preparing for it. Sufficient funding has been allocated for it. So we are yet to see the result.
And pilot projects are also under it.
Pilot projects are underway, yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you very much. That's a good question. A very complex series of questions in that one. The next question is: are your common service centers state-owned or implemented through strategic partnerships?
Okay. There is a central agency called the CSC Authority. It is the Common Service Center Authority. They are the people who are kind of tracking, enabling, providing the necessary legal and logistic support. Originally, Government of India started with the idea of having 100,000 common service centers across the country. However, with villages growing larger, population of 10,000 would have 6 or 7 habitations further. So growing larger, today the number of common service centers is touching 300,000. However, the viability was a big issue when it came to states that are in the northeastern region, states that were not so digitally mature or mature in terms of understanding or understanding technology. So originally the government wanted to do it, it failed. Second, they tried to award it to an external vendor who was actually paid to do these activities, they failed. Then they came up with the concept of entrepreneurship and then started involving self-help groups and local communities to run these common service centers. That's when the success of these centers, at least these centers started seeing some kind of success, where today they're called the VLEs, village level entrepreneurs. One of the key things that they did was, it's just not citizen to government or government to citizen. They've added business to citizen services also. So there are certain surcharges. So I'm using a phone which is provided by a private vendor. So I can actually go and pay the bill for this private vendor's services through a citizen service center. So a number of business to citizen services have been added. Number of business to business services have been added. Services to it's called the rural BPO. Any kind of data entry activity, any kind of certificate printing, any kind of bill collection. Some of these activities have been added to the overall design and business model of CSCs. And then the percentage of revenue to the CSC operator has been increased, and a lot of capacity building happened. And then now I think some of the most successful CSCs are in the rural areas. Almost 50% of the, you could say, the common service centers are actually being operated in the rural areas. Yes, but cities, the urban areas, I think the CSCs are at the best. They started with about 25, 30 services. Earlier, there were just simple transactional services like payment of bills and things like that. But now there has been a lot of back-end integration and, a passport for an Indian citizen, you can obtain it from a common service center, but not all of them. But most of the urban common service centers are very, very, actually they're doing very good.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Vikash and Satya. I very much appreciate your taking the time to present to the conference. There are more questions. Unfortunately, we won't be able to get to them right now. But thank you again, and hopefully, we'll stay in touch. I think what you're doing is fascinating, and a lot of lessons learned for that for all nations, to say the very least. You're, like I said, the scale of your challenge is incredible. So with that in mind, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentation. We're going to be taking a break of about 10 minutes, and then afterwards, Rachel Porteous from the Financial Tracking Agency will basically be giving a presentation on digital transformation in a high security environment during the age of COVID. I think it'll be a very interesting presentation, and Rachel has basically been with the multiple professional associations, and she's working. She's right now head of the Ottawa chapter of the CIO Association of Canada, and formerly she was with the Data Processing Institute for government. So with that, thank you very much, Satya.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Okay,
Thank you.
Satya and Vikash, and well, I'll be seeing Vikash, to say the very least. Take care. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and have a good day, everyone.
Okay, you take care.
Bye.
Can we exit the screen?
Yes, please. Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
Good. And I'm just waiting because there's latency with the C-vent, so I have to wait for a few moments before I end the session.